The film begins as we enter Cooper's diner in the small town of Grove Hill. What appears to be a casual conversation between four friends Bobby, Steve, Mike, and Carol turns out to be a disturbing plan in the making. They intend to take this year's Halloween hazing up a notch in order to ensure that their target, a seemingly innocent teen boy, is left hysterically petrified. Little do they know about the terrifying way they are going to pay for this little bully. Carol, still nervous, warns Steve that she has a bad feeling about the whole thing, which he dismisses as usual. As Mark signals Jacob's arrival, the culprits move toward their victim, cornering him while Lester or Dr. Death begins his show on the stage outside, oblivious to the tragedy that is about to strike. Steve grabs Jacob, but just as he's about to retaliate, Mike warns him that if he makes any move they'll actually INF. Carol lets out a silent scream as she watches her friends brutally murder the boy. Some time has passed, and Lester is desperately calling out Jacob's name to no avail, cradling his battered and bruised body. We see a glimpse of an inconsolable Carol elsewhere, while the boys pace around her, deluding themselves into believing that their actions were in self-defense. Back in Lester's trailer, amidst ominous music, he opens a wood box containing a book, a candle, and a frightening mask. Lighting the candle, he puts the mask on Jacob's dead face and begins to recite the ritualistic passages written in the book. When he stops, there's a long beat of silence, then we hear heavy breaths and a glimmer of victory in Lester's eyes, looking at whatever has risen up before him. The following morning, a policeman, Sheriff Bramford, is patrolling a tranquil area when he unexpectedly catches a glimpse of a guy bathed in blood. Of course, the mirage vanishes just as he goes to examine it. His colleague Marcy then approaches him, warning him of an issue at the station. Carol then proceeds to tell him about the prank her friends played on him, emphasizing her concern that the guys might have killed him. It is also revealed that the sheriff is Mike's father, and he says that he will talk to his son if he has done anything wrong, but Carol begs him not to tell Mike about her confession. Later, Branford arrives at the fairgrounds to investigate, and we see a strangely calm Lester tell him that Jacob is alive. The depressed sheriff then informs Marcy that there has been no homicide, but that he is going to Jacob's house to talk to him anyway. When he arrives, the house appears to be abandoned as no one answers his knocks or calls. But as he is getting back in his car, we see a lowly growling figure peering at him from between the nearby trees elsewhere. Carol receives a phone call in which a sinister voice declares that he knows what she has done. She nearly has a heart attack when she looks out her window and finds Steve scaring her by wearing a mask. They have a conversation about that night again, which ends with a mere apology by Steve as he leaves. Carol is reading a headline about the carnival at a cafe when Mike approaches. Gus brags to his brother Chet about the crazy night he had, and they laugh. Soon after, Gus is in the restroom and he sighs when he hears the thudding on the floor. He gets out and finds a pumpkin basket placed on the sink filled with candy corn, and there he is, the dead man, and the mask slams Gus into the wall. Jacob will continue to choke Gus until he dies someplace else. Carol tells Steve how Mike cornered her this morning. After a brief moment, a boy arrives to inform them about Gus. Back in the cafe, Sheriff Bramford and Officer Conrad are securing the murder's evidence as well as the candy corn shoved down the body's throat. The sheriff speaks to the shell-shocked Chat, telling him that he'll need to come to the station to file the report. Meanwhile, Steve and Carol arrive at the scene and Bramford takes. Bramford learns that Gus was present when the four friends beat up Jacob, but he dismisses the murder as a mere coincidence because Gus was involved in numerous shady activities such as drugs in the car. His associate Officer Fox expresses his fear, saying that he has never seen someone murdered so horribly and is dreading the search for whoever did this. Bramford tells him that he will investigate more, so he chooses to go to the carnival to explore further. At Bobby's home, the friends gather to discuss the problem. When the others express their doubts about the link between Gus's death and Jacob, Mike, like his father, dismisses it as a coincidence and walks away in rage. When everyone leaves, Bobby hears a strange sound coming from the hallway. At first, he thinks it's his friends joking with him going out to inspect. He also finds the pumpkin basket laying on the floor. Tentatively, he walks over to it when the masked man pushes him against the waffle. Officer Fox and Bramford are already fed up with Lester avoiding their queries. Lester then asks if they are implying that he had anything to do with Gus's murder, but Bramford says that they are just trying to gather any useful information. When asked about Jacob, Lester says that he doesn't know where he went after they brought him back to the house, but Bramford becomes skeptical because he couldn't find Jacob at his place that morning. Before things can escalate, Officer Conrad arrives at the trailer with the news of Bobby's death. Bramford, Mike's worried father, requests that he stay safe, respect the curfew, and not leave the house. He asks Mike about that night again, suspecting that the carnival freaks are behind the crimes, but Mike refuses to speak with him despite his arrogance. It appears that Mike has heeded his father's warning because he calls Steve and Carol to inform them that the Halloween party has been canceled. Carol, on the other hand, is unconcerned about the situation because she enjoys having Steve home all to herself. Meanwhile, Bramford and Fox return to Jacob's house but find it empty again this time, though the stakes are too high to just leave the place like the cop did last time. Instead, they break into the house looking for any lead. A few moments later, Fox incessantly calls the sheriff to come upstairs. The room is filled with a horrid smell buzzing with the cessation. Lester wonders what his co-workers are worried about at the carnival, and a man with an eye patch Gate demands him to tell the truth about Jacob, but Lester tells him to sit down. Similarly, as tensions rise, we see Carol calling out to Steve but not finding him anywhere, and she notices the candy corn-filled pumpkins and shouts Steve's name, asking him if this is a joke. At the tray for a brief moment, blood pours from his head, and he falls. Carol rushes to him, urgently attempting to keep him awake, but it is futile. His eyes lose their luster as he lies dying. Carol desperately looks around for assistance, but Jacob appears out of nowhere behind her. As soon as she sees the bloodied mask, she rushes away and shouts for help, but Jacob is quick to follow her into the theater, viciously pulling her against him and shredding her tongue to pieces. Although the aftermath this time is different, just as Jacob is about to walk away after laying Carol's body next to Steve, he falls on the floor unconscious. Next in the trailer, we see Lester begging and shouting at Jacob to wake up as their work still remains to be done. Returning from Jacob's house, Fox questions Bramford if he believes Jacob killed his own mother, referring to the corpse they found in the house. Lester tells Gate that Jacob is still unconscious and that he needs new blood to live. He then instructs Gate to keep Mike occupied while he assists Jacob in recovering. Gate and his cronies knock Mike unconscious. Lester, on the other hand, walks to the sheriff's residence, where one of Lester's men knocks Bramford in the head as soon as he returns to the premises. Mike is chained to a chair and forced to listen to the carnival via the speakers. Lester's voice announces the start of the concert, and Mike is permitted to exit the tent. The sheriff's cruiser arrives briefly. When Mike sees his father's severed head put on the vehicle with the eyes and nose gouged out, he cries hysterically, which is followed by Jacob's presence. The masked guy pulls Mike's arms off and kicks him towards the ground. Blood splatters all over the ground, and Lester's chuckle echoes candy corn in his palm. Nodding to Jacob, he returns to his trailers, and we unhappily see Jacob ripping Mike's teeth from his mouth one by one. The film goes dark. We go on to another scene, and it appears that some time has passed. Another carnival is taking place, and a woman is talking to Lester in his tent. She asks him if the teeth on his necklace are real, to which he responds that everything in his shop has a long history behind it, and that the teeth are real as long as the freaks of the world continue to hold down innocent people like him. Heal, in short, to restore the balance. The video concludes with a terrifying but corny scene of Jacob, the bleeding masked guy, cramming his lips with sweet corn that has an eerie similarity to human teeth.